What's up guys, welcome to this week's tutorial. In this video I'm going to show you how to add a comment section in your WIX Dynamic page. On a previous video I showed you how to add a review section to your WIX product page, but in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add that same section but then in your dynamic page. As you can see, this is a dynamic page that displays the information of a location in the world, and if you want to allow your customers or your site visitors to leave a comment and share the experiences of how they visited or experiences on visiting the location, then this is the best tutorial for you. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to visit the site example website. Right here is the WIX example, and it's in the WIX website. You can visit this website. The link is right there in the description below, and then you're going to click on edit now. Okay, so now I have opened up mine and have navigated to the store page, and under the store page you're going to head to the product page itself. Okay, so as you can see, I'm already here in the product page. What I want to do is to copy the elements of the comment section. So right here, all the comment section elements are all entered into two strip elements. So I'm going to go ahead to copy these two elements. So go ahead to hold your control and then click on the second one, and then next you can copy these elements. Now copy these two elements into your dynamic page. So I want mine to be just below at the end of my dynamic page, and right over here I'm going to go ahead to paste those elements. Now you can see that my elements have been entered into my dynamic page. I can go ahead to customize this, but I don't want to go through this for now, because what I want to do is to just focus on the making it work. Alright, so now I have fully entered my elements, or the elements from the WIX example, into my dynamic page. I can now go ahead to proceed with the other things. So the other thing we have is we have a review data set. Now this is the data set that displays the content that have been reviewed or commented. So what you're going to do is that we're going to add a data set into our website as well, into our dynamic page website. So head over to the content manager, and then you're going to click on the data set. Now we're not going to configure this data set yet, and the reason is because we are going to create a special database collection that is going to store all our comments, and then we're going to display them. But what we can do right now is that we can copy the ID of these data sets. I'm going to go over here, the properties panel, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this ID, and I'm also going to replace it here. Okay, so now we're done with that section. The other section that we have is the code section. So we have a bunch of code over here. What I'm going to do is just to copy all the code that I have. I'm going to go ahead and copy C, Control C, and I'm going to bring it right into my website. So to turn on your dev mode to access this section, head over to dev mode and then turn that on over here. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and paste in the code from the WIX example. Now you can see that we only have one section with the error, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to fix this error in a while. And to do that, what you're going to do is, you can see this is the get product. This is the ID of the product page, and we are not on the product page, we are on a dynamic page, and the only thing that links a dynamic page to our database is the data set, the dynamic data set. So you're going to get back into your dynamic page, and you're going to look for your dynamic data set. So mine is right over here. If you click on it, you can see that it is called the dynamic data set. This data set looks different from all the other data set, and the reason is because, as you can see, this page shows items from the tour collection based on its URL. So most of the data set don't display things like this. So you're going to find out your data set is a dynamic data set when it shows this message. Alright, so once you found your data set, your dynamic data set, you're going to go back into your code and copy the ID from your properties panel, and you're going to replace this ID right over here. Okay, so once you're done, you can see you have another error for the get product. That's because we're not getting the product, we're getting the item or the particular item being displayed. So instead of get product, we're going to get the current item function. Okay, now you can see that we have no errors in our website, in our code, but then it doesn't mean that the code is fully configured yet. So we have a few things that we need to configure, and that is for the button here, which we're going to add an on-click event. We're also going to add an on item ready for our repeater. So let's start with repeater. So we're going to click on our repeater. You can see the ID is called review repeater. We're going to maximize our code panel, And then we're going to go over here and copy this ID. I just copied mine. I'm going to go ahead to find this ID. So I'm going to find this ID called reviews repeater. So as you can see, we have only one place it is being located, and it's located over here. So we need to add an on item ready. So what I want to do first of all is to comment this section out. To comment out, you can go over to the first part of it and then type in /2 times, and that will comment that section out. Alternatively, you can use your keyboard shortcut, which is Ctrl// to comment that out, and also again to comment that back to bring back the item. Okay, so I'm going to comment that section out, and then I'm going to click on the on item ready function over here, event handler. I'm going to click on that and then hit enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and look for the item that has just been added, which is right over here at the bottom of my code. I'm going to go ahead to delete this one because I will not need it anymore, because it's exactly the same as what I have for this part that I just commented out. Okay, so that is that, and that part is all set. Now we have something else to add, which is the button on click event for the add review. This button is going to pop up a light box that will allow us to enter reviews or our comment. So I'm going to go over here and copy this ID, and I'm going to go ahead to find Ctrl+F and then Ctrl+V, and I'm going to find this ID. Now you can see we also have an export function for our add review. It has a click on click event function, and what we're going to do is to add on click event as well. So again, I'm going to go ahead to comment this section out, and then I'm going to go ahead, click on click, and then hit enter. Now we have already entered that already, so now we just entered a new event. I'm going to go ahead to delete the new event because it's exactly the same as what we already have. I'm going to go back to the first part, and then I'm going to remove the comment. Now you can see that this section is already done, and finally we have a text which says results page. All right, so over here you can see this load more item or text. What we can do is to actually delete this item, and we can use a button instead of a text. So in this case, we're going to reduce the number of code that we have. I'm going to drag this right over here into the strip, and I'm going to change the text to say load more. Now that is all set. Now what we need to do now is to connect this to data. We're going to go over to the data set, which we haven't created yet. Now this is the data set we're going to configure very soon. We're going to come back to this section later. Okay, so what you can do is to delete this section since we don't need it. Okay, so I'm made to believe we added a data set earlier, but we haven't added anyone yet. So we're going to add another one, and again we're going to change the ID. I think we already have one that says reviews, and that is correct. So it's right over here. This is the one we haven't configured yet. Now to configure this data set, what we need to do is to create a new database, and the database from the WIX example that we need to create is right over here, and we have two of them, and one of them says review stats and the second one says reviews. So we're going to go ahead to create the first one, which says reviews. But first of all, we need to click on the settings, and we're going to get the ID of this data set. The ID is called review stats. So we're going to get that ID and then just replicate exactly what WIX did. Now, as you can see from here, I have already a reviews database, and that is from the second database. Okay, so I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to show you what I did. But first of all, let us create the first one, which is the review stats. So over here it said how many items. We're going to continue with multiple items and then create our database collection. So we're going to open up what WIX has done, and then we're going to see the fields that they have created, and we're going to also do exactly the same thing that they have done. So the first thing we have is the rating, and as you can see, the field type is a number. We're going to go ahead to do the same thing. I think we have everything else as number. So we have rating, count, and recommended. So we're going to create these three fields the same way in our website, and then we're going to continue. Okay, so now we have created exactly the same fields that WIX has created in their review stats collection. Now what we're going to do is to check the permission of this collection. So let's open up the collection settings, and under additional settings we can see that they have used the custom use. Now let's check and see the set custom permission. Now you can see right over here that we have anyone can read, anyone can create, anyone can update, but only the admin can delete. So we're going to do the same thing and have the same permission that WIX has used. Okay, so I'm going to head to the additional, and then I'm going to scroll down to custom use, and then here I'm going to change it to anyone can do everything except that only the admin can delete. Right, so let's save all changes. Now we're done with the first collection. We're going to head back to the second collection. As you can see over here, we have I have already added the second collection. I'm also going to go back to the one from Wix, and then let's see the fields that they have also added. You can see from mine that I have already added about the same fields that Wix has, which are right over here. We have exactly the same fields. We have the recommends, which is right over. Okay, I just went back. Let's go back to view all collections and reviews. Right, so they have the recommends, which is a boolean field. So over here you can see it's a boolean field. So we're going to go ahead to also create the same field that Wix has created with the same exact field types. But the most important one is the products, which is right over here. Now you can see that this is a Wix example, and it is actually an example for a Wix store. Okay, so right here is a Wix store, and that is the reason they have called this section the product part. Okay, but mine, I have renamed it to Tour because that is the name of my that is what the website is all about. Okay, and right over here at the properties, you can see that the field key is called product ID, and what I'm trying to do is to replicate exactly what Wix has done. I just want to have exactly the same IDs that they have used. This will save me a lot of time, and then I just have to focus on the design. Okay, and the reason is because Wix also has used the same field key, which is called product ID. So what you do here is that you copy their own ID and you head into the website, and then you create a new field, you add it right over here, and here what you're going to do is to change the ID to what Wix has already. Because I already have one created, that's why I have this error. And you can change the name to whatever your website is all about. Okay, now we are all set and we're ready to dive into the third part, which is the light box that shows the user to, or prompts the user to actually enter their comment. All right, so we're going to head to the main pages, and then we're going to go to light boxes. And here we have a light box called the review box. Okay, so this review box is going to allow the users to enter their details or comments into the website. Okay, so as you can see right over here, they have a container element. So I'm going to shift this a little bit. You can see from here a container box, and it's a review. The ID is called review box. So I'm going to go ahead to copy this box and then place that into my own website. So I'm going to create a new light box because I don't have one yet. So I'm going to go to add, and then I'm going to head to the interactive. And over here you can see at the light boxes, you can choose any design that you really want to use. So I'm going to go ahead to choose the first one because I'm going to change design anyway. Okay, so I'm going to head here and delete every item on my light box. I'm going to drag that a little bit to make the height to be higher. Then I'm going to paste in the design from the Wix website, and then I'm going to have to center that to the center and to the middle as well. Now you can see that my item is all set, but what I want to do is to change the color to something different. So you can just design this to suit your design or your website design. Okay, so that is mine, and that part is all set. The second thing that they have is the submit reviews data set. So I'm going to also do the same thing. I'm going to add a data set into the website. So here I'm going to click on add new data set, and then I'm going to have to configure this data set. This data set is connected or configured to the reviews collection. So I'm going to also do the same thing and connect the same thing to my reviews collection. All right, but then this is going to be a write only, and that is it. The name of this is called submit reviews, so you can go ahead to do the same thing if you have to. The name doesn't really matter. What matters exactly is the ID. So you're going to go to your code panel, and then you're going to copy that ID, which is called submit reviews. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm also going to replace mine with the new ID. So that part is all set. And then we're going to also copy the code from the light box because there is a code there, and I'm going to copy that code and I'm going to paste that code into my own light box code section. Now you can see that everything is all set, but we also need to connect the export function on change to the radio element. So we have a radio rating, which is over here. We're going to add an on change event to it. Okay, so I'm going to head over here, and I'm going to first of all I'm going to have to comment this out again, and I'm going to click on change and then hit enter. Okay, now that part has been created, and what I want to do is to delete that part, and I'm going to have to remove the comment on the first one, and that has been replaced. Okay, so now that is all said, and that is all done for this part. We are all done with the most important part, but then we need to connect this item to data to save our items. So I'm going to connect these items to our data set, which is the submit reviews. So that is the nickname is the writer name, the location as well. The review title is also connected to review title, so I'm going to also go ahead to connect that. And then we have the review, which is also been connected. Then I think we have the email, and finally we have the upload button, which is right over here. I'm going to connect this to the image or the photo field. I'm going to publish that. I think I have to also save that as well to make sure that my changes have been saved. Okay, now we're going to head back into the dynamic page, and we're also going to connect some items to save them. Okay, so we haven't configured this data set yet. I'm going to go ahead to do that. I'm going to configure this and also save it to the reviews database collection. Now the next thing to do is to set it to read only, which it is. I'm going to set that to read only. Then I'm going to connect these elements to it. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and then look for the data set that I have just configured or created, and it's called the reviews data set. So I'm going to connect my repeater to that data set, and I'm going to connect these text elements. We have a number of text elements. I think this is the first one, which is the nickname. Nickname is the writer's name, and we have other fields, which is the location, and we're going to connect these to the location field. Then we have the image, which is the user image. We're going to connect that as well. We're also going to connect the tooltip to their own user name or the writer's name, and also the alt text. Then we're going to connect the other field, which are the review's title. And finally, we are going to connect the review. Okay, so those are all the fields that we need to connect on the repeater. Finally, we also need to connect the load more to the data set to also load from the data set. So I'm going to choose the reviews data set, and the click action, I'm going to choose load more. Now this is going to be much better and much interactive, because it's going to be disabled when there is nothing to load and enabled when there is something to load. And here we can also configure and change how many items we want to be displayed at once. So you can decide to show 12 reviews or comments, and then you can also go ahead to add a pagination bar, and I think that is an interactive. And here we have a pagination bar, so you can go ahead to drag that and drop onto your strip, and then you can just center that to the center, and then we can connect these to our review data set. Now once you do that, you can be able to paginate between the pages of your data set. Now most importantly, I think we might have forgotten a step to take, and that is changing the lightbox name. Okay, so we need to change the lightbox name to what Wix has here, and the name is called review box. So I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to copy this name into mine and change mine to the same thing. Okay, so it's called review box. So go ahead to check if all items are connected. Okay, so this button needs to be connected to submit. So let's make sure that this post review is connected to submit. So what I'm going to do is comment now, or comment. Now this is my dynamic page. I'm going to go ahead to refresh this page, and then let's take a look at what we just added to the website. All right, so here you can see that there are no reviews yet. You can go ahead to change that, and this box should not pop up this way. What we need to do is to set the trigger. So click on your lightbox, and then what we need to do is to set the trigger and say automatically display lightbox on pages. No, so we don't want to display automatically. We want to display only when it's been triggered. Okay, so that now makes sense. Okay, so now we can go ahead to refresh the page again, and then let's take a look at what we have just added and go ahead to test our review out. So there are no comment reviews for this item yet, so let's go ahead and write a review or comment. Okay, so let's submit everything that we need to submit. Okay, so now I'm done with writing up my review or comment, and I'm about to submit my first comment. So I'm going to click on this button called comment. Once I do that, you can see that the image is being submitted and the item has been submitted. Now the item has been submitted, and you can see that we have one product that has been submitted and we have 100% recommended. So when we refresh this page for the first time, when the item has been submitted, you can see that my information has been loaded. Now when I try to submit again, I'm going to go ahead to give it a very poor review. So I'm going to go ahead to test this out, and here I'm going to choose I do not recommend. So I'm going to choose no, and then comment the second comment, and let's see how that shows up. Now you can see that that has been popped up, and you can see that my information was displayed properly. Okay, so this is how you add your comment to your dynamic page. All you need to do is just to change the ID or the data sets instead of the product ID that we had in the first page. Secondly, I think I connected these two to the same field. So this is the review title, so I'm going to leave this as review title. This should be the review, so I'm going to connect this to review. It's connected to the review title, so let's leave that at the review and then publish. All right, so the next thing you want to check out is how to change this item over here. So how do you change from product to maybe item or service or event or whatever that you want to customize what is being displayed? So let's go ahead to change that part. So what we need to do is to click on this item, then go over to the settings, and here are the settings. You can see product ratings. So what you could do is to change and say, since I'm using a Tor, I can say Tor ratings. Okay, let's change that and say Tor ratings, then hit enter. That should be saved. Now let's publish this again and then save. Now we have saved our review. What you're going to do is to refresh, and then we're going to see that our item has been saved, and you can see we have 2 Tor ratings. Okay, and that is what is being displayed. Okay, so what you're going to do next is let's find out if this item actually displays on this page alone or all the pages. So this is the first page showing for New Zealand. So I'm going to go to my Tor pages, and then here we can see I have a number of Tor locations. So let's click on Rome, for example. Let's check out the Rome dynamic page and see if the item was saved. So here in Rome, you can see that we have no reviews for Rome. What we can do is to add a new comment for Rome. All right, so now I have filled up the form to submit to my Rome dynamic page. I'm going to hit on comment. The item has been submitted, and we have 1 Tor rating. If we refresh the page one more time, you can see that the item should already be there for the item called Rome. Okay, so this is for Rome. You can see that the item is only displaying for this dynamic element. So this is how you add a comment section to your WIX dynamic page. Okay, so if you love this tutorial, don't forget to check out my other videos. They are amazing way on how to add this feature to your WIX store. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Turn on that bell notification to be notified when I release awesome videos like this, and see you in the next tutorial.